You're listening to Mammal Watching with Charles Foley and John Hall. You can find other episodes at mammalwatching.com/podcast.
Welcome to the Mammal Watching podcast with me, Charles Foley in Minneapolis.
And me, John Hall in New York. Charles, it's good to see you again. It feels like it's been a few days since I last saw you. Saying goodbye to you in Djibouti. How are you doing?
I am doing very well, yes. So we've just got back from a trip to Ethiopia and Djibouti, and it was a wonderful trip. We will discuss this on a later podcast. We'll go into the details about it, but in brief, we wanted to see dibber-tags in Ethiopia and beira in Djibouti, and we did see them, and they were awesome animals. But the whole trip was just fantastic, and Djibouti in particular was really interesting because I think our expectations were so low, and we ended up seeing some incredible mammals over there. And I'm sure that many mammal watchers will want to head to that country because it really was quite special.
Yeah, no, it was such a special trip. I mean, the Somali region of Ethiopia is a place it's very hard to visit. It's very safe, but it's just difficult to get permission to enter there. And so we had a wonderful week camping there, looking for stuff. But Djibouti, as you say, I hadn't thought too much. I haven't looked into it too much, but my expectation was somewhere that was kind of flat and dusty. But it wasn't. It was spectacular scenery, these glorious campsites surrounded by mountains where we were the only people and some really, really mega wildlife. So that was a huge win for the end of the year for me and for you, I know. I think it should become a real top mammal watching destination. It's a very easy destination from Europe. It's a quick trip, few days there. You can see a bunch of really good stuff.
Yeah, no, exactly. And as you mentioned, coming towards the end of the year, it's been a pretty good year, hasn't it, for mammal watching in general?
It has. Yeah. No, I feel like this year things have really ramped up. The velocity and the speed at which everything's increasing interest, the conservation side has really picked up. And there's been some great things. There was the article in Mongabay that they published that you and I wrote about conservation. And there's more and more of these success stories linking mammal watching to conservation as a community and a local level. There was a New York Times article that Mihir wrote that's seen a spike of interest in the website with a bunch of people subscribing. And so I feel like it's gone mainstream. Mammal watching's become a thing this year beyond just the likes of us, the small community, and the conservation side as well. So it's super exciting. The website, I don't know what these figures mean, particularly I don't really understand them, but Google send me figures every month, getting some like 700,000 impressions a month, which sounds probably more impressive than it is. But thousands of reports up there, a bunch of reports every week, people posting, more and more people using it. So it's just really pleasing on all levels to see this interest picking up and to see how worthwhile it's becoming from a conservation point of view.
Yeah, and also people in the mammal watching community getting new records for countries and major range extensions, etc., and getting those records published. It's happening more and more often, which
Yeah.
is just great to see. And with the podcast, we are approaching, I believe, about 43,000 downloads since we started, which is great. And it's interesting because they're little niche areas of interest. So there are quite a few in Australia.
Mhm.
So many people over there in Sydney, etc., Melbourne, who listen to the podcast, and also proportionally, there are a lot of people in the Netherlands who also listen to it. So it's fun just to look back and see where are people actually listening in from.
Yeah, thank you, Sydney, and thank you, Holland. It's great for the support. I'm surprised about Sydney there. I think it's like 300 people downloaded one episode from Sydney, and I don't know. I mean, I know five or six people there, but I don't know who the others are. But it's great to see.
Yeah, really. And of course, you've been gallivanting around the world this year. So what have been some of your personal highlights?
Yeah, I mean this year's been a special one for seeing several animals I really wanted to see. So I mean, there's a few. There's the trip we did to Ivory Coast and seeing that Liberian mongoose come bouncing out of the bushes towards us. That was huge. an animal I thought I'd never see. Then there was seeing a vaquita in Baja, really special. And a big thanks to Bob Pittman and Todd Pusser for getting me out on that trip, because that, I mean, I hope other people see them, but you never know if we might be the last people to see that species. Bowhead whales in the Arctic, another thing I've wanted to see for 30 odd years, seeing those cruising through the ice. Special Geldes monkey in Bolivia, that fantastic few days in the Azores with my daughter Katie when we broke the records on that boat trip for the numbers of species they'd ever seen in the morning, beaked whales and pygmy sperm whales. And then, of course, Ethiopia and now Djibouti with that maned rat sitting, posing like a supermodel for photos. Yeah, it's been a really good year.
That maned rat was just ridiculous, frankly. It's a mammal that I had wanted to see for so long. And this one just kept wandering around the kitchen and actually sort of had a standoff with a local cat. And we watched it for about half an hour. It's just such a gorgeous animal. Yeah, and the Ivory Coast trip, the Liberian mongoose was fabulous. But that was actually the first time I'd actually seen a truly wild pangolin, the white-bellied pangolin that we found over there. So I'd seen sort of ones in captivity or ones that had been released, etc. So that was a special sighting for me as well.
Yeah, it's been a good year for both of us. So we're going to be talking to Marcelo Gavensky from Argentina in just a moment. But before we do that, as this is the last podcast of 2024, wish everyone listening a very happy Christmas if you celebrate it, a very happy holidays if you don't, and a happy new year to everyone. I hope this year's been productive and mammal filled, and I hope next year will be even better for you all.
I completely second that. May the mammals come in vast numbers for everyone.
Charles and I are very happy today to be joined by our good friend Marcelo Gavensky, the leader of Birds Argentina. But don't be concerned, we won't be talking about birds, will we, Marcelo? We'll be talking about mammals. Marcelo and I first started talking in, I guess, about 2021, 2022, when Martin Royal Safaris did an Argentinian trip and Marcelo was guiding it. Martin wrote to me and said, "You've got to meet this guy, Marcelo Gavensky, who's guiding our trip. He's amazing. He's not only a great guide, but he's really getting into his mammals and he has a mammal list." So, of course, I got in touch with him straight away and we started looking and talking about the wonders of Argentina. I traveled with Marcelo a year ago, I guess it was, about a year ago to right now, isn't it? On a wonderful trip. If you haven't been to Argentina, you're missing out. And if you haven't been to Argentina with Marcelo, you're really missing out. We'll be hearing a lot more about why the country and its mammals are so wonderful in this interview. Welcome to the podcast, Marcelo. It's great to see you.
Thank you. It's great. For me, it's an honor to be here. So thank you, John. And hi, Charles.
Yeah, hi, Marcelo. So Marcelo and I, we met at the British Bird Fair, but I have not yet been to Argentina with him. Yet another thing to add to my list. Anyway, welcome, Marcelo. Let's start out by having you tell us how you became interested in wildlife.
Well, I've always been interested in wildlife from my earliest memories, so I don't remember the exact moment. But I grew up in a small town in Buenos Aires province, and I remember, some of my earliest memories were being in my backyard looking at ants and spiders or everything. And my family knew that I had a very strong interest in wildlife, so they also encouraged that interest by renting documentaries from National Geographic. So I remember watching documentaries about wildlife of Africa or Southeast Asia and North America, the prairies. At least, I think at that time there were no, or at least not famous documentaries about the wildlife of South America. So that I learned a lot about all that wildlife. But I also had a very strong interest in paleontology. That was my first dream. I think when people ask me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I always answered I wanted to be a paleontologist. So I had this interest in prehistoric animals, especially dinosaurs, but not just, also the megafaunas of mammals were there too. And then I started bird watching when I was 10 years old. So I had my first pair of binoculars and my first field guide because, growing up in a small town in the countryside, you normally play in the fields So I used to do that with my friends. We went fishing, and I started wondering all the names of these birds that we were seeing, and only a few of them had common names that most people would know, but many others didn't. So I was introduced to a local naturalist from my hometown, who also was because I was introduced to him because he had a big collection of fossils. He helped with a paleontologist on research in the area. So I was introduced to him because of that. But he happened to have this book, Birds of Argentina and Uruguay, and I asked that to my parents for I think my birthday present. And I started birding. But I always liked mammals too. In fact, my first favorite animal was a mammal, tiger. That later on, when I learned about the native species, I changed the tiger for a jaguar. But now I don't have. I think I don't have favorite animals. I have too many favorite species, so it's hard to choose.
So from that passion of paleontology and tigers and then jaguars and even birds, you ended up setting up a bird watching company. How did that happen?
Well, that happened because I tried many other things and it didn't work. In fact, they were always related to wildlife. But so when I finished high school, I moved south to Patagonia, to northeast Patagonia in Argentina, to study a career on fisheries because I also used to be a big fan of fishing, and I was never a big fan of studying. So I decided if I had to study something, it must have been something I really liked. So I moved south and I studied that career, but I started also helping in an institute of marine biology in different projects, and later I started working there on mainly fish research, sharks and skates, but also helping my friends who were in other projects like marine mammals and invertebrates. I worked as a marine observer, like working on board fishing vessels, making a biological sample of a catch in the Patagonian, no, not Patagonian, the Argentine hake fishery. Always taking my binoculars with me because of birds, but also seeing lots of wildlife. I think I really felt privileged for witnessing this marine wildlife of Patagonia, because being in a boat for 5 or 6 days, you get to see thousands of dolphins together in a pod of thousands following the boat, or really close encounters with orcas, because orcas there sometimes they approach to fishing vessels to look for sea lions. It's because sea lions follow the vessels, and orcas know that. So sometimes they show up because of that. And I remember at least once they were right beside the boat, but there were no sea lions at that moment, so they just looked at us and left. Then what else? I attended an internship in Israel in the year 2008 also in fish research and helping in field work at the University of Tel Aviv. And when I came back to Argentina, I decided I wanted to live in Buenos Aires. I didn't want to go to Patagonia again. And I started looking for a job, any job, and I just couldn't find something because there are not many opportunities here for someone with my background. But then I learned that the Museum of Natural History here in the city was opening a course for guides. So I showed up. They told me this course is meant for biologists or biology teachers or professors, and you're not either of these. But there's enough room, you can do it anyway and try. And from that course, only the 10 best, it had an exam. So, and the 10 best notes would get the job. And when I was one of those, and I started guiding at the museum. And so that's when I learned that I like guiding. Before that, I didn't imagine myself in front of a group of people talking, showing things. And I showed quite a few mammals in that museum, including the pink fairy armadillo. but of course it wasn't moving. Um, it's a bit easier to show mammals that way, but it's not the way I like it, in fact. So I had a great time as a guide there, and I think I would have stayed there and worked for longer if not for the bad, I would say, the salary and working conditions. So at least at that time it was like that. So I started looking for something else, and I got this job in an office on sustainable fisheries, eco-labeling. There are labels, sorry, for sustainable fisheries, and that had to do with what I studied. So I decided to give it a try, but it didn't last. I didn't last because I just couldn't be for that long in an office. It was 10 hours a day, which I mean, there are far worse jobs in the world, so I'm not really complaining about that. But I like being out in the wild. So I think I thank them because of that feeling of not being there. I started to think what I really wanted to do, and then I decided that my dream work would be to be a nature photographer for National Geographic magazine. But of course, I didn't even own a camera at that time, and my salary was not good enough to buy my first camera. So I thought, well, I'm a bird watcher. I know how to guide. I speak English. Maybe I can start guiding bird watchers and saving money for that camera. That's how I found this niche. So I started because of that, but it didn't take me long to realize this is what I like to do. First with birds, and now shifting more into mammals, but still birds I like bird watching. I won't quit bird watching completely for now, at least.
And how long did it take you to get to the point where you had enough clients coming through that it was sustainable?
Well, it was hard. First, the first thing I did was to go back to the museum because I quit the office job, but I needed to have at least some income again. So I went back to the museum and started offering. I built a very, very simple website about wildlife of Buenos Aires in English, offering my services as someone who could show people our wildlife. And the first season was really hard, really like survival guiding. But I was helped I've always been helped by many people, like I'm being helped by you now. And I was helped by a colleague from a different company who was going on vacation, and he needed a surrogate guide. So he called me. We didn't know each other, but he called me. We spoke on the phone in English, and he gave me a big number of his clients for that season. Then the second season, I had already my own clients. Third season was better, and it kept growing year after year until the year 2020. And guess why?
At what point did you start incorporating mammal watching into your itineraries?
Well, to incorporate it really like the goal of the trip is a more recent thing. There's always been mammals on my trips because you go out birding, you see many more birds than mammals, but there's always some mammals in this area, the nutrias or coypus, or if we visit the Northeast, we see capybaras or we see howler monkeys. But it's always been like side watching. I don't know if that's a correct term from birding. Like we were birding, okay, there are some monkeys here, and if my clients were not really hardcore birders and they didn't care losing time, birding time for a mammal, we would spend time looking for mammals. But if it was for me, I like seeing everything. So only a couple of years ago, when I met Martin Royal, I was able to be his local guide. I realized, or I started understanding how a mammal watching trip works and the expectations. Because before that, I didn't know. When you come from bird watching, you're used to seeing especially in the neotropics, you see so many birds that when you think about mammal watching, it's hard to to get to know what the expectations are, because most bird watchers, and including bird watching guides, we think that most mammals that will be seen just by chance. We won't be able to go out and really find something if we want to find it. And even if we find them, there's lower. I mean, there are much fewer species of mammals than birds. So that was the first time I realized, okay, this is something that can be attractive even in this area. I mean, in the Pampas around Buenos Aires, which it's a very diverse area, but it's not the rainforest of Misiones province or other places. And then after that trip, I started mentioning mammals more, even to bird watchers. Now I think on every bird watching trip I guide, I mention mammals, because I want to see if my clients have an interest in them, and then we can just do some more effort to see them. So the answer is that it's quite recent that I started doing this.
Right. And I think it's fair to say that Argentina hasn't really been a major destination for mammal watchers, but clearly it's picking up. What are some of the best areas to go mammal watching in Argentina, and what sort of mammals are you starting to be able to show people?
Well, there are many. I think all the country is good for mammal watching, depending on the species that you're looking for. But I used to think that the best areas or the easiest areas could be Northeast Patagonia, because of you can do like a safari. They're looking for both marine mammals and land mammals. You see lots of guanacos, you see Patagonian maras, some guinea pigs or cavies, and on the seacoast you see southern elephant seals, South American sea lion. If you're lucky, well, in the right time of the year, you can see the orcas, whales. So for a long time, even before I started guiding mammal watching trips, I thought, well, if I had to recommend someone a good place for mammal watching, Northeast Patagonia would be one, and the area of Iberamarsh would be another one, because you also see lots of wildlife, not just mammals and birds, but you also see, I don't know, caimans and anacondas. But you get to see lots of capybaras, howler monkeys, marsh deer, brocket deer, plains vizcachas, Jeffrey's cats, and others. So I think those areas would be the easiest for a nice general wildlife and mammals trips. But then, I don't know, the rainforest, the Atlantic forest in Argentina, in the province of Misiones, has a very high diversity of every group of animals and plants, including, well, mammals. And although the rainforest can be quite hard for wildlife watching, not just mammals, but even birds can be hard to see in the rainforest. Some species, like recently I started guiding trips for the tapirs, South American or lowland tapirs. And there's this place in Misiones province, which must be one of the best places, at least in the region, for these species. Because if you're there the right time of the day, you wait for them in a special place, you get to see them. These last two trips, especially the last one, we saw 4 different ones. The previous trip we saw one, but we also saw an ocelot. So I think there is a lot of potential in Argentina and many regions. It's just a matter of time until the guides, like myself, get to know what the best place is for each species. But I think those places, Patagonia is more than just the Northeast. You can visit the south of Patagonia and also get to see lots of mammals. Well, the puma is known in South Patagonia, in the Chilean side, for Torres del Paine, but it's all across Argentina, in fact. And I think in the near future there will be places that will be probably as easy as Torres del Paine. Torres del Paine is a place I know and I like visiting, because I also like combining countries. Even in the birding trips, I like combining Argentina with Chile, because sometimes you just cross the border and you have a couple more species. So yes, it's hard to choose a place for me.
Prior to starting the interview, you were mentioning that Argentina has 14 different species of cats, as well as large numbers of cetaceans, etc. Those are quite staggering numbers. Do you think that it could become a major cat watching destination in the future?
Yes, I do. I think so. It can definitely become that. We need to find a way to increase the chances of seeing all these species. But even the hardest for us, I don't know. We have jaguars in Argentina. No one, most people who visit Argentina don't consider Argentina as a country where they could see jaguars, but we have them. They are endangered, critically endangered for the country, but we still have quite a few in Misiones province that I just mentioned. And it happened to me right after the pandemic. One of the first trips I was able to make, I was invited by a friend of mine who told me he wanted to go to Misiones province to look for jaguars, but he doesn't have much experience looking for wildlife in that area. So I told him, there's people who live in that province and they've never seen one, and I go there every year. I know all these other people who go there, and it's so hard to see them. But you know what? If you're inviting me to do that, to try, let's do it. So we went there for a week, actively looking for jaguars in that province. Going across the places where we know the jaguars are, and at different times of the day, doing the same road in the morning, then in the afternoon, then at night, trying different trails. And in one of these trails, we happened to found one. But there's an important but. We didn't get to see it. We didn't get to actually see it. But because there was a very dense bamboo forest between us and the jaguar, but the jaguar was really close to us, maybe less than 10 meters. And it was definitely a jaguar because we heard it roaring to us. I think we disturbed its nap. It was in the afternoon in the side of a stream, and we could hear it standing up and moving slowly, but doing a lot of noise and roaring to us before it disappeared. Then I started thinking, okay, I know we were very lucky because we were extremely lucky. You can try doing that many times and you won't get close to one. But I thought maybe with more effort, it is possible to see even the species that you think they're impossible. Later, 1 year after, I saw a jaguar in that same province with another friend, but that time was by chance. We were there's a road that crosses the Iguazu National Park, and we were there waiting because we could hear a big group of white-lipped peccaries, and we thought that they were going to cross the road at some point, so we started waiting there. And the peccaries never showed up, but suddenly a jaguar crossed the road. So I'm using the jaguar example because I think that could happen with basically all the other cats, even the hardest. And I know people. There's another friend of mine in Mendoza province who is getting to really know his pumas, and the pumas in his place are starting to know him, so they're letting him see them for longer. So I think we need more, and I'm telling all my colleagues and friends, there's Mammalwatching. We should start caring more about this, because first it's great. I mean, we all really enjoy it, and second, I think possibilities are really high. I mean, I personally think that maybe Mammalwatching is not as known for Argentina in other countries because maybe people started going to other countries. And so I use a lot mammalwatching.com. I really like the website and the trip reports. But I think probably the first trips to maybe Chile, which I really like Chile also as a destination. So you get trip reports from Chile, and then you can follow those trip reports, and you get more trip reports from the people who is visiting those places. And with time, you get Chile has become, I think, a more known mammal watching destination than Argentina. But I think that it has to do with that, not with the real mammal watching possibilities, which are really high in this country.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. That first mover effect is powerful, but it's also an extremely exciting time to be in Argentina, as it's, you and your friends there are finding out more and more. As you know, Marcelo, I met someone from Wildlife Conservation Society this week who's working on wildlife-friendly guanaco farming, basically puma-friendly guanaco farming in Patagonia, and they've been getting Andean cats on their camera traps, and it's only 1,000 meters above sea level, so potentially a much more comfortable place to look for them than Lauca in Chile, for example. And Charles was talking about the statistics you were rattling off before we started talking, but you also said, 44 species of tuco-tucos, 13 armadillo species. So you could spend a lot of time in Argentina and not run out of things to see. One great story that I'd love you to talk more about is the Franciscana or the Plata River Dolphin, which is a dolphin it looks like a river dolphin, but it's actually a sea dolphin. It's in a family of its own. It's an animal I thought was extremely hard to see. So I said to Marcelo, what are the chances of looking for it? And you have managed to put that one on your menu. Can you talk about the story behind that?
Yes, of course. Well, Franciscanas, for me, for a long time, were also like a dream to see, because ever since I was 6 years old, I think, we used to go to the beach with my family on summer vacation. So I have looked at the sea for many years, and not seeing Franciscana for that long, I thought, well, Franciscanas must be really, really, really hard to see. And then there was this trip, this vacation trip with my girlfriend, who really likes wildlife also. She's a guide too. And we were looking at the sea, and suddenly she saw something. She pointed out, oh, there's something there quite close to the shore. And we saw it together. It was a Franciscana, because we could see the long beak and, well, everything, the fin. And since that first Franciscana we saw together, in that same trip, we found more Franciscanas, at least 8 more times in different spots. And then I started thinking, okay, maybe it's not, I mean, yes, it's hard to see, but maybe it's not impossible. Because normally it happened to me with other animals, with birds. Sometimes the very first one is the hardest, because you don't know exactly how it looks. Well, I mean, you can see it in a book, you can know the length and weight of it, but until you see the first one in wild conditions doing what they do, and that could be a bird too, it's hard to, unless you're very well explained how to find it. And that happens now with birds, because we have a lot of information. So a good field guide on birds will tell you how to find it, and you follow those indications or explanations, and you can see it. But with Franciscana, I couldn't find anything like that. So then we started paying more attention, and every trip, or almost every trip I made to the seacoast, I would see Franciscanas from that trip on. Even on vacations, or sometimes guiding bird watchers. So I think when I first contacted you, or you contacted me, John, I mentioned that we have Franciscanas, and I think we can find them if you want to see them, because I think it's a matter more of weather conditions, also knowing exactly what they do and where, because they normally, at least here in Argentina, or in Buenos Aires province of Argentina, they swim very close to the seacoast, and many times just right behind the waves, and they have a very similar color to the water in this province, which is, at least in the shore, is quite brownish. They don't ever jump, at least in my experience, and they just breathe a couple of times and then disappear. So and they're very small. It's one of the smallest dolphins in the world. And so if you know this, and you know some places where they're seen, you have very good chances of seeing them, unless there's bad weather, because that's the other thing. If you're unlucky with weather and there are too many waves or a storm, then the Franciscanas are still there. I have seen them in those conditions, but it's far easier when it's a calm sea. So, and I think the first time that first trip I saw them with my girlfriend, I was able to make a short video and I posted it on Facebook at that time. I got lots of comments, even from colleague guides from other countries asking because they were interested in seeing that, and they had clients that were interested in seeing Franciscana. So, well, for last year when you visited Argentina, John, um, well, that was the first time we ever tried an itinerary just meant for Franciscanas. Of course, some other mammals because there's so many other species we could see, and it went well. Well, your your trip report was great, and I just a couple of weeks ago tried the almost exact same itinerary for a second time. This time with Alex Mayer and a group of other mammal watchers and bird watchers, and it went great. Also, the boat trip was just like last year, very similar. Maybe the weather wasn't as good, but some of the Franciscanas we saw were even more cooperative. They would stay longer near the boat. So it was amazing. We also saw southern right whales, South American sea lions, South American fur seal, all in that short boat trip. So I think it's possible now that I have tried the boat trip twice at least. I think it's possible to keep doing this in the next few years for anyone who is interested in seeing this dolphin.
Fantastic. Yeah, really good.
Marcelo, I'm interested in knowing how you see mammal watching progressing in Argentina, because you mentioned that many of the birding guides are interested in mammals, but they, in essence, see them as almost as bycatch on a birding trip, just because mammals are clearly harder to actually track down. So do you see that changing in the future?
Yes. I mean, there's always been mammal watching, not always, but for a long time, there's been mammal watching in Argentina because of orca, killer whales watching in the areas where they get stranded on purpose to catch, sea lion pups or elephant seal pups. It's a trip. It's like a tour experience that has been sold for decades now, and that is mammal watching. But I think the mammal watching, like we're doing it now, where everything matters. Also, the tiniest mouse matters. That is, I think, is more new, and there will be more interest because I can see when I tell others, my friends, my colleagues who are guides, I tell them about the bats or mice or everything, and they'll all start thinking, yeah, and I know this place maybe for bats, or I know this place for possums. And again, I think probably all of us like mammals as much as we like birds. It's just that birds, are far easier generally to see. And now with the new tools like the thermal scope, which that's something I also saw for the first time with Martin Royal, because he had one and it was amazing. Well, you all remember the first time you saw and tried your first thermal scope, and with that tool which I have now, and I use it also for birding, because since I have it, I take it for every trip, and it's incredibly useful for everything. I think the possibilities of mammal watching growing are very high. I can see the interest already, and if there is more people interested in seeing mammals in Argentina and they're visiting us, I think we will be ready for that.
In our previous podcast, we interviewed a couple of people from Thailand, including the guy called Tor Ekul. And one of the things that he mentioned was that an increasing number of their clientele are Thai people. Whereas, 20 years ago, there were no Thai bird watchers, and now there are actually a reasonable amount. And the Thais are now starting to take trips overseas to go on safaris to Africa, etc. Are you seeing anything like that in South America and in Argentina?
Well, I see it a lot in bird watching, and in mammal watching, it's a matter of time. until people get to know that it is a possibility. I think here we are in a stage that still most people don't know about mammal watching. But I can see it in birding, and normally the same people who like birding, they tend to like mammal watching or general wildlife watching too. And it's growing a lot in Argentina for a long time. It's still growing, and in other countries in the region. Maybe for the trips that I sell or that other guides sell, it's harder because we tend to travel on our own. I mean, people might just hire a guide in a place, but they would avoid buying the entire tour pack. But and also we are now and for many years going through an important economic crisis, and that affects how people just is willing to pay for things. But it's definitely growing, and I can see more and more people doing this in the future. More locals, Argentinians. In fact, I think it was last year or earlier this year that I posted something on Instagram about mammal watching in one of the accounts that I use, and it was in Spanish, meant for locals, and there was a lot of interest in that. I think it was just a few slides mentioning what mammal watching is and the trips that I was planning to organize, and I got many people interested in that. Because I think there's lots of bird watchers who are just waiting for mammal watching to be more easy to do, maybe, or with people showing the way, leading. So yes, I can see it growing in the next few years for sure.
Music to my ears. This is great news, Marcelo. So what are some of your most memorable mammal encounters in Argentina?
Well, the two encounters that I had with the jaguars are up there, because that even the one that I only heard, and that's something also I'd like to mention, because coming from bird watching, many of the bird watchers count only heard birds, when you just heard them. And it's interesting how in mammal, well, I think it is slowly getting to set up the rules of mammal watching, rules for everyone. So, but sorry, you asked me about the memorable mammal watching. So I have seen a bush dog, but I have to say that was one of my poorest mammal watching experiences, because it was very fast, too fast, in fact, for me to enjoy it. So in fact, I don't count it for me. So it's on my list in my mind, but it's a species I definitely want to see again and better. I have a friend in Misiones province who had a great encounter with bush dogs earlier this year. He was surrounded by a pack of bush dogs. And it was incredible. So that would be a memorable mammal watching experience with bush dogs for me. So I can't count my bush dog experience as one of my most memorable. I do think I was very lucky for seeing one, but I'm thinking about others. Well, Maine wolf. Also, I really liked seeing Maine wolf. I've seen in Argentina and in Bolivia, but my first Maine wolf was in Bolivia, and it was an amazing encounter, because it was during the day, and it was sort of walking towards us. In that same trip, we also saw a jaguar, giant anteater, lots of other great mammals. But that Maine wolf was memorable. And then when I saw it in Argentina, a couple of years after, it was also great, because I value more my Argentina list or sightings. But yes, I should think of others. Seeing orcas very close. I remember the time I was sampling, I think it was an Argentine hake. We were measuring it, and suddenly someone screamed, orcas! And we left everything, run to the side of a boat. They were there looking at us. Oh, and another orca experience was great on a pelagic. It was supposed to be a pelagic trip, like a pelagic birding trip in the San Matias Gulf in northeast Patagonia in Argentina. we saw lots of dolphins, different species of dolphins, and then at the end, this group of orcas that showed up, and one of them just stayed following our boat, and it would go down and look to us from under the surface, and then would move away just to breathe, and then come back and keep looking at us. So yes, and I could keep thinking of more, but these I think are my top mammal watching experience in Argentina that I can think right now.
Wow, that's pretty great.
You know, what's interesting is that you mentioned the fact that birders will count species that they've only heard. Do you guys do that, John? Do you ever count a species that you've only heard, or has that never happened to you?
I mean, I suppose the closest thing would be bat detecting. And no, I don't personally. And I always joke it's mammal watching, not mammal listening. So it just seems odd to count things you've heard. I mean, I kind of get it more with birds because their songs can be so beautiful and distinctive that there's something maybe very special about hearing a bird song. But hearing the average grunt, squeak, or kind of growl from an animal and just knowing it must be such and such doesn't really do it for me. There are probably some people who may count them, but I've never done it, and I never will. No.
Yeah, no, same with me. I've heard an owl-faced monkey, for instance, a male territorial calling.
Ooh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, that was in Rwanda. But to me, that's just a source of frustration because I didn't see it, rather than something that I feel I could count. But
exactly.
Yeah, clearly the birders.
Well, in the birding community, it's not that everyone counts an only heard bird, but many times now, especially with the use of eBird and other platforms, then you need to upload everything you hear or see because it's for science. So, and then it ends up in your list. And some people, I personally think that if the species I'm now talking about birds, if this bird species, its song or call is more important for identification than the plumage itself, and it's a very reclusive species, then I'm okay with just hearing it. But it's funny what happened with mammals, because this last trip, we were hoping to see a new recently described tuco-tuco species called the Monte Hermoso tuco-tuco. Sadly, we couldn't, we missed it, but we were there with the active burrows, and we were able to hear them. And they're very different to other tuco-tucos. In fact, I read part of the description, the paper when the species was described, and they mentioned the difference in its call as one of the things that made them think that it could be a different species. So I personally felt, okay, this is good. We're hearing a different sounding tuco-tuco, and I would count it on my mammal watching list if it's allowed. If it's not allowed, I'm fine with going with the rules.
I don't think anything's allowed or not allowed.
As
long as it's ethical, then everyone just goes with
whatever floats your boat. If it does it for you, it's fine. It just wouldn't do it for me. But absolutely, right. Yeah. Marcelo, thank you so much. I said at the start that if people listening haven't been to Argentina, then they're missing out. I think everyone will now understand what I mean after listening to you. It is you live in a wonderful country. It has incredible food, for one thing, and lovely people, dramatic scenery. It's so varied. And as you say, the potential for mammal watching there is huge. You're already opening up the country through the work you're doing to find some really, really good species, but there's so much more to be discovered. And the more people that visit, the more we're going to find out. So I really encourage anyone who has an opportunity to go there to go and start looking, because as you said, Marcelo, what a place. You're so lucky to live there. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah, and I should jump in and just say that you should do everything you can to encourage some of your other birding colleagues to start doing some more mammal watching, because I am sure, heck, with 44 species of tuco-tucos, I mean, Argentina really could be on the mammal watching map. It's fascinating to listen to your stories, and I have to admit, every birding guide who becomes a mammal watcher feels like a win for us. So really glad you did that. And look forward to hearing more about what you're seeing in Argentina.
Well, thanks a lot. Thank you again for the invitation. Also looking forward to tell you about the tuco-tucos and wine tour in Argentina one day.
Bring it on.
Yeah.
You've been listening to Mammal Watching with Charles Foley and John Hall. You can find other episodes at mammalwatching.com/podcast.